Victoria didn't enter the courtroom like an ordinary woman attending a legal proceeding. She moved as if the building itself answered to her. Her heels struck the marble in steady, deliberate rhythm, not rushed, not hesitant, controlled. She wore understated luxury, a fitted ivory coat over dark silk, the kind of elegance that doesn't beg for attention because it expects it. When her gaze drifted across the room and settled on me, there was no grief in her eyes. Our grandfather had been gone 3 weeks. Yet the only thing reflected in her expression was calculation. I sat alone at the respondent's table. No relatives behind me, no high-powered attorney adjusting cufflinks beside me. Just a closed folder and the quiet awareness that this moment had been building for years. Behind Victoria, Gerald and Diane took their seats like patrons at a show they had financed. Gerald's jaw was tight, his posture rigid. I recognized that look. To him, this wasn't family, it was strategy. And I was an obstacle. They believed today would be simple. They had no idea I had been preparing for this for 3 years. The bailiff called the case. Judge Harrison Cole entered, composed, observant, carrying the wariness of a man who had witnessed too many families fracture over inheritance. Victoria's attorney, Raymond Schultz, rose with polished confidence. Your Honor, he began smoothly, we request immediate transfer of the Pembroke estate, specifically the castle and all associated holdings, to my client Victoria Hale. The words landed heavily. He painted me as inexperienced, unfit, isolating, suggested I had kept our grandfather away from his concerned family during his final years. Victoria never looked at me. She didn't need to. She already believed she had won. Judge Cole adjusted his glasses and turned toward me. Ms. Pembroke, he said evenly, do you object? Yes, Your Honor. A faint smile curved at the corner of Schultz's mouth. On what grounds? I inhaled once. Steady. I'd like to wait for one final party to arrive before responding. Silence stretched across the courtroom. Victoria let out a short, humorless laugh. Gerald muttered under his breath. Diane sighed dramatically. To them, I was stalling. But I wasn't stalling. I was waiting. Judge Cole studied me carefully. Something in my expression must have convinced him. How long? Minutes, Your Honor. The clock ticked louder than it should have. Every second tightened the air. Then the courtroom doors opened. Not violently. Not theatrically. Just a firm, controlled push. A silver-haired man in a dark suit stepped inside carrying a sealed envelope. He didn't glance at Gerald. Didn't acknowledge Victoria. He walked directly to the clerk. This is for the court, he said calmly. From the trustee, Judge Cole read the return address. His expression shifted, and for the first time since entering the courtroom, Victoria's confidence flickered. Whatever was inside that envelope wasn't part of her plan. And the moment the judge broke the seal, I knew something irreversible had just begun. Because my grandfather may have been dead, but he wasn't finished speaking. And what he had prepared was about to change everything. The judge didn't rush. He examined the sealed envelope, as though it might explode in his hands. The courtroom held its breath, while he carefully opened it, and withdrew a thick, cream-colored document stamped with an embossed seal. The silver-haired man remained standing beside the clerk, Jonathan Crane. He introduced himself calmly. Senior Trust Administrator, Hawthorne Trust Company. The name carried weight. Even Judge Cole's posture shifted slightly. Hawthorne wasn't a casual institution. They represented generational wealth, complex estates, and clients who planned decades ahead. Victoria leaned toward her attorney. For the first time, her confidence wavered. Judge Cole began reading silently. His eyes slowed. He adjusted his glasses. Then he looked up. This is a certificate of trust, he announced. Dated 7 years ago. 7 years. I felt the memory like a pulse. I had been 21. The judge continued. The property known as Pembroke Castle, along with its surrounding lands, was transferred into an irrevocable trust under the name Pembroke Family Preservation Trust. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. According to this document, Judge Cole added, tapping the page, the castle is not part of the probate estate. Victoria's expression hardened. It cannot be transferred, sold, or reassigned by this court. The judge finished. Raymond Schultz rose abruptly. Your Honor, even if a trust exists, its validity can be challenged. Before the judge could respond, Mr. Crane spoke again. With respect, the trust was executed in the presence of independent legal counsel and 3 verified witnesses. It has remained active and compliant since its creation. Judge Cole flipped to the next section, and the primary beneficiary, he read slowly, Alexandra Pembroke. The silence that followed was deafening. Victoria didn't gasp, she didn't shout. She simply went still, too still. The beneficiary is granted full residential and usage rights immediately upon the grantor's passing, Mr. Crane clarified. Full ownership transfers at age 35 contingent upon maintenance compliance. Gerald stood from the gallery. This is fraud, he snapped. Edward wasn't in his right mind. Sit down, Judge Cole said sharply, or I will have you removed. Gerald sat, but the damage was done. His outburst echoed louder than any accusation. Schultz shifted strategies instantly. Your Honor, we believe undue influence may have been involved. Alexandra isolated Mr. Pembroke during his final years. We question whether he acted independently. There it was. When they couldn't attack the documents, they attacked me. Victoria finally spoke, her voice trembling just enough to sound sincere. She controlled everything, she said softly. Who could visit? What he signed? What he knew? The air shifted again. Judge Cole turned toward Mr. Crane. Does the trust address concerns of coercion or mental capacity? Mr. Crane reached into his briefcase and withdrew a second envelope. This document, he said evenly, was prepared by Edward Pembroke on the same day the trust was executed. It was to be opened only if his granddaughter's integrity was questioned. Victoria's knuckles whitened. The judge broke the seal. His eyes moved across the first paragraph and stopped. He looked up slowly. I believe, he said carefully, that you should all hear what Edward Pembroke anticipated. The courtroom fell silent. Because whatever my grandfather had written, he had written it expecting this exact moment. And the words he left behind weren't just defensive. They were calculated and devastating. And when the judge began reading aloud, everything Victoria thought she controlled began to unravel. But she wasn't done fighting yet. Judge Cole adjusted his glasses before he began reading. The 2-page statement in his hands was written entirely in my grandfather's unmistakable script. Deliberate, elegant, disciplined. I had seen that handwriting on birthday cards, in the margins of books he insisted I read, on small notes slipped into my suitcase when I returned to school. But I had never heard it echo through a courtroom. I, Edward Pembroke, being of sound and deliberate mind. The judge read steadily. Write this statement in anticipation of accusations that I suspect may arise after my death. The room was still. If this document is being read, it means someone has questioned my granddaughter's integrity. Victoria shifted in her seat. I was not manipulated. The judge continued, voice firm. I was protected. That word settled over the courtroom like a verdict. Alexandra did not isolate me. I chose distance from individuals whose intentions did not align with my values. Gerald's jaw tightened visibly. She never once asked about inheritance. Never once pressured me regarding property or money. She came because she loved me, not because she expected something in return. I stared straight ahead, refusing to let the emotion show. But inside something cracked open. Judge Cole turned the page. I am fully aware of who attempted to influence my decisions. He read next. I retained correspondence. I preserved voicemail recordings. I documented financial requests. A visible tremor passed through Diane's hands. I know who pressured me to alter my will. I know who attempted to persuade me to liquidate assets. I know who believed my age made me vulnerable. The air felt heavy now. This trust was not created in confusion. The judge continued. It was created in clarity. Raymond Schultz attempted to interrupt, but Judge Cole silenced him with a look. There are additional documents held by my trustee. The judge read. Should further accusations arise, they will corroborate my competency and intent. Then the judge paused. The final paragraph. To those who accuse Alexandra of manipulation, he read slowly, you mistake patience for weakness. You mistake kindness for ignorance. And you underestimate her because she does not announce her strength. Victoria flinched. And if this letter is being read, the judge finished, then you have already begun to face the consequences of that mistake. Silence. Judge Cole removed his glasses and looked across the courtroom. This court finds no immediate grounds to invalidate the trust, he stated clearly. The emergency petition is denied. Victoria stood abruptly. You can't possibly. The trust stands, Judge Cole said firmly. And further baseless allegations may carry legal consequences. Then Mr. Crane spoke once more. There is one additional matter, Your Honor. The trust contains a no-contest clause. Any named beneficiary who challenges its validity forfeits their inheritance. Victoria froze. Mr. Crane continued evenly. Ms. Hale was designated to receive 15% of liquid assets. The implication landed slowly. Her attempt to seize the castle may have cost her everything. The judge called a recess. People moved, whispered, reacted, but I remained seated, because as Gerald slipped out into the hallway, I heard him mutter one sentence into his phone. We move to Plan B now. Before she discovers the rest. My grandfather had anticipated their accusations, but what had he anticipated beyond this? And what exactly was Gerald so desperate to hide? Because if today had exposed one secret, it meant there were others buried far deeper, and someone was already trying to reach them first. When the court resumed, I could feel it, the shift. Victoria was no longer rattled. She was composed again, calm, almost serene. Whatever panic the trust had caused her was gone. That should have worried me. Raymond Schultz stood with renewed confidence. Your Honor, while we acknowledge the trust's technical validity, we must address evidence that directly contradicts the image presented of Ms. Pembroke. A screen descended from the ceiling. My stomach tightened. Security footage from inside Pembroke Castle. Schultz continued. Recorded 4 months before Mr. Pembroke's death. The study appeared on screen. My grandfather sat in his leather chair, a document in his hand. He looked confused, fragile, then the camera angle shifted, and I saw myself, standing beside him. Just sign here, grandfather, my voice said clearly through the speakers. It's what we discussed. On the screen, my grandfather hesitated. I don't remember, you agreed? My recorded voice insisted. His hand trembled as he signed. The video ended. Silence filled the courtroom like smoke. Judge Cole's expression changed, not dramatically, but enough. Doubt. That was the word for it. Victoria didn't smile openly, but she didn't need to. Her victory was quiet. I felt frozen, because that moment never happened. Not like that. I had never stood over him, never pressured him, never forced anything. But the footage looked real, sounded real. And in a courtroom, perception was power. Marcus Webb rose immediately. Your Honor, we object to the admission of this footage without proper forensic authentication. Schultz countered smoothly. It is dated, time-stamped, and retrieved from the castle's own security system. Judge Cole leaned back, thinking. Then he called a short recess. We stepped into a private conference room. That video is altered, I said immediately. I remember the phrase, but not like that. Marcus's eyes sharpened. What phrase? Just sign here, grandfather, I repeated. It was his birthday. Mrs. Patterson made a card for the staff. I asked him to sign it. Marcus was already opening his laptop. If that's true, he said, then they spliced audio. My phone buzzed, unknown number, 2 words. Metadata doesn't lie. A second message followed. Check frame 147. Someone was helping us. Marcus connected the USB drive that had been anonymously delivered during recess. Split screen comparison. Left the video presented in court. Right, a raw file with metadata exposed. At exactly your 47 seconds, the waveform showed a splice, 2 separate audio files merged unnaturally. Zoomed frames revealed lighting inconsistencies around my figure. Pixel distortion at the edges. The file creation date. 6 weeks ago. Not 4 months before my grandfather's death. Someone had composited my image into old footage, and the editing software license traced back to a media subsidiary owned by Diane Hale, Victoria's mother. This wasn't desperation. This was premeditated digital fraud. Marcus closed the laptop slowly. When we go back in, he said, we don't just disprove this video, we dismantle them. I nodded, because this wasn't just about the castle anymore. They had tried to rewrite reality, and whoever sent that USB wasn't finished yet. But one question remained. If someone inside their circle was leaking evidence, why? And how much more had they recorded? Because if this was their strongest attack, it was about to become their biggest mistake.